Pigeons 420. Mr. Grow It. From the stack.
Unlock the potential of your grow space with the AC Infinity Controller 6.9 Pro or the Controller 6.9 Pro Plus, your ultimate partner in precision environmental management. This state-of-the-art controller allows you to manage up to 4 devices, or 8 if you have the 6.9 Pro Plus, independently, adjusting for temperature, humidity, and VPD with dynamic precision. Experience seamless integration and control from anywhere using the AC Infinity app thanks to its advanced Wi-Fi and Bluetooth features. Elevate your growing conditions to perfection with the customizable schedules and the real-time monitoring. The Controller 6.9 Pro, where technology meets cultivation. Explore more at acinfinity.com or find it on Amazon and use discount code THESTASH15 at checkout.
Are you a grower? Are you tired of lugging around too many bottles? Is it too expensive? Is it so confusing? Tired of reading feed charts? Well, guess what? There is an easier way. Introducing the Stash Blend. You can now get your bag of Stash Blend premium additives that you can add to your garden using just about any base nutrients. Go to stashblend.com and get your order today.
Boys, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from the Stash, from the Canadian Pigeons Media Live studios. I am freezing cold this morning because let me tell you, we woke up and it was 45 degrees in the Airbnb.
Celsius.
Yeah, right. I wish.
Freedom units. It was so cold.
Chris had no idea because he wasn't there yet.
No.
And I was like, I've just got this like chill down my bones, and OMG, I couldn't find the thermostat.
I ripped my
These
shirt
thermostats,
with how sharp my nipples got from that. It was so cold. Right through there. Right in there.
these thermostats are set on a schedule, and so it was just because it is ridiculously hot here. And so it was 45 degrees in the B this morning. That is not good. That is not. I couldn't change it. I had to go outside. I was like, I'm going outside. Forget about it. I'm going outside. Oh, so you might enjoy it in the morning.
He's actually gonna like it.
I like sleeping in the cold.
And I like sleeping in the cold too. But this was cold. Like there's a body in the room that's locked. There's a lock on a door downstairs. There may or may not be a person living in the other side.
I think there's a person living down there?
Yeah. So Wink had
in the shed
a nap. He woke up and somebody put towels on top of his stuff. Nobody was in the house. We were gone. We were picking you up.
God.
We were picking you up. Somehow, some way that happened. Also, there was like an assortment of random that's currently used. Like somebody was just watching a P90X video and Fast and Furious 1 via DVD. Just left them bad side up too, scratched up side bottom on the DVD player. That's like I gotta hurry up and go. I forgot because I was just watching P90X and Fast and Furious, and the tenants are coming, the renters. Yeah, so I'm convinced that somebody lives there.
Maybe it was the person who checked out before us. They came back, same key code or whatever. I've always wondered if Airbnbs change out the key code or it's the same key code, right?
It's the same key code. I've seen movies like this. There was a movie filmed in Detroit called, I think, Banshee or something like that. And like there was 2 people standing there, and then there was a crazy inbred person in the basement.
What?
That ended up coming out and killing everybody, except for one person.
Every single time I go into a new Airbnb that we pull into, I 100% go on a camera check. I check every crevice. I check every vent. I check every window, every clock, every corner. I'm on a camera check because the amount of incidences where there are cameras or at least reports of people being spied on, it's actually quite a bit with Airbnb. There's a lot. I don't think if you know this, but there's like, they said 36,000 complaints a year about hidden cameras.
Search for Rob CLtv leaks and see if you find anything. See if anything pops up. Brother.
Yeah, it's frightening, but you know what? It's at least it's a roof over our head. It's not as bad as LA. LA was like a one. It had enough bedrooms. Wink was on the floor.
I was on the couch.
Rob was on the couch. I think I had the
There
biggest
was
bed.
somebody tried breaking in. Me and Wink didn't sleep much.
OMG, they did. They wiggled the handle. Yeah.
They bumped against the door and wiggled the handle.
Welcome to Canada where nothing happens, guys. Welcome to Canada where nothing happens,
It's
guys.
comfortable. But one thing that did happen,
What happened?
this tastes fantastic.
Oh,
I
it
really like
does.
this.
This is the
permanent
marker.
They called it
Wow.
Hawaiian marker, but
You're-
they lied to us.
You're 100% right. When we smelt that,
I knew.
you're like the smell. If this, as soon as you opened it, you're like, this is permanent marker. This
Yeah.
is it. You handed it and smelt it. I've never had the permanent. He's like, this is it. So I was like, okay, this is it. And he says it usually transfers into the taste as well. Just taking that
By
in,
golly.
that's exactly what I
Exactly
was
what the
just
smell is.
smelling. So
That's because that whoever dried and cured this and grew it, they did it the right way to avoid hay. You know, and hay's for horses. This is what I've been told. So we've seen a lot of hay out here actually, and there was some hay terps on a little bit, but there's some things that you could do to never have hay smelling bud again. And this, honestly, in my opinion, is so crucial for so many growers because there's people who think they're doing something wrong in their grow, when realistically, it's usually the end game. It's when they pulled, it's how they pulled, it's where it was, it's the conditions it was in, it's how long it's all these variables that make it so all that time growing was a waste. Beautiful big buds, beautiful plant, and it's just hay smelling trash. And I know people have had this smoke getting it from other people, but when you do it yourself, God, that's the worst feeling, man. I've done it before, and it's just like you know you ruined it. You'll try things. Those of us who've had the brick in Canada, that is definitely not a thing. But brick bud, I remember people putting a lemon peel or an orange peel or an apple, piece of an apple with more of a peel in their flour to give it kind of like more moisture and also a little bit of an aroma of a fruity. I tried that with hay smelling stuff that I had, and it was just hay smelling stuff with a slight apple peel flavor and smell to it. So once you get hay, man, you never come back. Like, it's hay, it's done.
sure, you can add another taste,
With the hay.
but that's like putting that's
With
like
the hay.
that's like putting on a bunch of cologne over a bad BO. It's
I
just
smelled that in
cologne
Montreal.
and BO. It's not soap on your it's not deodorant. No. Hay smelling. It's funny. I don't know about you guys. I don't think I've ever really asked you, but I would argue that one of the most common questions that I get, and I do say this often in this statement, one of the most common questions I get is how come my stuff smells like hay, and what can I do to fix it? And unfortunately, as you kind of just alluded,
stuff. They're like, why does your stuff smell like hay?
well, you got to quit growing wheat. You
Yeah.
got to quit growing wheat.
Wait.
Wheat. You can't fix it. At that point, it all has been lost. I believe.
I might disagree with you a little
Hold
bit.
Okay, let's
on.
fight. Go ahead, please.
The
Let
first
Chris
week
speak.
of drying, some people mistake that,
A
right?
little bit of a hay smell then.
When you just start to dry, the
Good
first couple days, people get the hay
That was a
smell,
good cutoff.
and it disappears as long as you're in the right conditions, drying, so on and so forth, right? So like there is recovery for some folks. It just takes a little bit. I think a lot of people panic. They have that hay smell within the first day or so into curing, and they're like, "Oh no, hay smell! What do I
It's
do?"
too late. I did something wrong yesterday, and now it's ruined today.
Yep.
No way. Yeah, that's a great point because, man, I myself have thought I ruined my stuff when I was 2 weeks later being like, oh, wow, this really translated. Because I didn't know, I didn't have flour that I experienced that. I always had stuff that you kind of had a little bit of a smell or strong chlorophyll where like it smells like plant,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know? But that hay smell comes from stuff that I feel like you may have leached or flushed and allegedly chlorophyll maybe broke down a little bit more, but it still is wet. It still hasn't got the terpenes that are really coming out quite yet. They're in there, but the drying and curing process hasn't had them become a noticeable, enunciated aroma in there. That's a great point, though. I think people will underestimate the power of a cure, of a dry and a cure in that sense. But they also need to understand when it's gone too long. Because if we're 30 days in and you're drying and curing and it still smells like that, you may have done something before drying and curing.
Yeah. And actually, I disagree with both of you.
Good. I like your hat.
I'm taller than both of you
That's
guys.
true. You needed to have I used to have shoes that were the exact match of that black with the trib. Is that a Nike or is that a Jordan hat?
And one, I think, or it's
Rip off. That's
Jordan.
No, Jordan.
Jordan.
I had
He's
the
wearing
shoes.
a bucket hat for those audio
Schoolboy
listeners.
P.
Schoolboy P.
Schoolboy P.
Go ahead,
This
P.
is normal out here. This is our 30th trip out here, and he's
I agree.
always board bucket.
I agree with both of you. But we should still fight. The thing is that I'm glad that you mentioned that the early smells can be a little bit of a distraction to what the final thing is or the final product will be. I was more, of course, referring to hay that's already in the jar.
Kind of
Your
Already
people
dried.
are probably it's already dry,
Yeah.
and that's where what happened, guys. What happened? I think I have a pretty good idea on what happened. But if somebody's got the hay, where did they go wrong? Is it because Is it because it wasn't the military grade?
There's no studies really on this, right? So it's all just anecdotal, our experiences. For me in particular, I feel like a fast dry has made it turn into hay, smell like hay, just very fast dry.
I was literally going to get all
30%
three of us to say, what do you think
humidity.
your answer is in 3, 2, 1, and what would yours have been? Fast dry?
CalMag.
CalMag. Okay, fast dry. It would have
I
been
didn't know where
fast
we were
dry.
going with
Not
this.
using military grade.
I didn't know where we were going with this. Stash blend.
It's stash blend.
But no, I agree, but I also think that we've got
Thanks for all the love in the chat, by the way, for Stash Blend over the last few weeks and
you guys
the
have
jokes.
loved it.
Thank you guys for the
It's
playing
no
along,
joke.
being
It's
a
the
good
best thing
sport.
ever made.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, one thing I think gets overlooked is there may not be an exact study that's done for drying your product and why it smells like hay, but there has been for terpenes and the volatility and how quickly they'll evaporate. And so I think that comes into play where you have dried too quickly and it's gone into an environment that has been too high of heat and a bad VPD essentially.
Yeah.
And you over dry it too quickly and those terpenes evaporate and now your chlorophyll didn't properly dissipate through there. So some of these things do have studies behind it. I am a little consumptionated, we'll say. I'm not, and so the permanent marker is working. So I can't recall a particular study, but
There is actually one thing that it reminds me now was there's pictures out there, videos that show the trichomes when you are in dry conditions that are swinging quite a bit. The trichomes burst.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
and
So
you're
like
going to damage your trichomes, which then
Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Literally are just
I didn't know that. They burst?
So,
So,
boom, and
so
then
there's
they-
videos? There's videos of burst or pictures of like...
One was posted by Canatrol. Obviously, they study. Yeah, they.
the tip busts out.
It's kind of like one of those videos. It's like a GIF. You know what I mean? It's like it repeats the loops like real quick, but it shows
Like
the
3
trichome
seconds.
kind of like expanding and going down, and then it's the conditions going up and down so much, and then bursting. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
Hate
that's,
to burst your bubble.
I've never seen that. That's really cool.
But that's my point. Is I think that's where you can go if you grew a good plant, everything was good, and it was fine and dandy. That's where then you mess up and get the hay smell. But what a lot of people don't look at is they pulled their plant too early, and they can dry and cure it as much as they want, but those terpenes didn't have time to develop properly. And I've done that myself when I've been in a point of moving or maybe allegedly ran into legal issues once upon a time and had to pull things quicker. And the smell is on the plant seems pretty good. You know what I'm saying? But if it's not developed fully, you're not going to necessarily get the aromas and the flavonoids, like the things you're really looking for. And if you pull that plant too early, a great cure and perfect environment won't make a difference because it didn't develop and mature like it needs to. I think that's one thing a lot of people will miss is it's like a one or the other. Either you did it or you did it. You know what I'm saying? It's not a random occurrence for hay. It's not a strain that this is just hay. At some point in here, you messed up. Now, was it in the grow process because it was pulled too early or too late? Or was this in the drying and curing process? That's normally where I've seen it, but it's like how to avoid these things is you could say, well, use the microscope, use your jewel and see where the trichomes are. But this isn't always a guarantee in my experience that it's perfect unless you're looking at every single bud. And I don't know many people who are. They're grabbing one cola, maybe two. I'm like, yeah, she looks good. But does that mean that the terpenes are mature? Do you know? Yeah, see? Science is, and this is where science and terpenes
I was
aren't
gonna
quite
cough
there
when I
yet.
See, you know what? There's got to be something to it. We have already discussed in many episodes before that terpenes are volatile to particular temperatures, and it makes perfect sense to me that there has to be a correlation between humidity as well. If your environment is too dry, and you're drying too fast, you're just ripe for evaporating all those terpenes and losing that product. You really, people think, sorry, I don't want to say people. This is more so, the only reason I ever know this is because it's me, is that I remember thinking like, man, I made it through the veg, I made it through the flour, I made it through dry. Man, it's downhill from here, man. And if you put that product into a jar and you leave it in the jar and you're not burping it, or you pull it, like you said, you pull it too early and you're not pull it too early from the dry as well. You said early is the crop and the dry, so it's not quite ready. I used to
put it in the jar too quickly.
Yes. I used to kind of, and to my own guilt, I used to perpetuate the idea that you shouldn't wait for the stem to snap. I think over the year, like again, as I've been learning throughout the almost 20 years I've been growing, I'm always learning, and I believed for a long time that you didn't want the stem to snap because I felt like it was over dried at that point. But I think I was misunderstanding that old school idea that you're not waiting for the whole plant to just under, you know what I mean? Under, and the whole thing you just in the darkness, you just see trichomes just shimmer to the ground. That's not what I meant, but that's not what I was saying. So I feel as if people were sometimes pulling it too soon, but I felt, because I was saying, don't wait for the stems to snap. I feel like that's too far, because I wasn't understanding that you do kind of want a little bit of resistance from that stem, but the plant should still have moisture in it.
Yeah, I think that's where the curing dead comes in.
And then I think what I was ending up doing in my own failure was then I was pulling it from the dry too early, thinking I'm going to make this up in the burp. Everybody's telling me the longer you dry, the longer you cure, the better. So I'm like, okay, well, let me take this sopping wet plant still. I'm exaggerating slightly, but in the scheme of things, I'm not. This sopping plant, put it into a jar and hope that every 12 hours that I'm going to get to that plant, which, life happens. You don't always get there every 12 hours. If you miss that 12-hour point, goodbye to those jars. They're done, right? So pulling it from the dry is very important. Trying to time that cure is so important.
Yeah, we want to bring it down to shelf-stable condition, 0.6 water activity, as quickly as possible, because that's where the mold growth eliminates that mold growth. I think some yeast can still be around that at 60, or maybe it's slightly above 60, 0.6. I mean, but water activity.
I don't understand what you're saying. So
you can
the amount of moisture in the bud, right? So
and how are you measuring that?
Water activity. Yeah.
How do you measure that?
There's devices that you can use, like with automatic trimmers. A lot of them recommend that you purchase something to test the moisture inside of the flower before you even use an automatic trimmer. Like Triminator's a prime brand who's like, hey, don't even use our unless you know it's at this exact moisture. Otherwise, you're not going to get the results that we're advertising that you're going to get. So I never even thought about using that. Like a moisture meter is what they're called.
Well, so for water activity, there's water activity and there's moisture percent. Moisture percent, you can buy a moisture meter and measure a moisture percent. Water activity, you can't measure it. It's just safe to say that at 60% RH is a 0.6 water activity.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's what I thought it was, because I was thinking
that sounds like
stable at that 0.6.
Okay,
that sounds like
it's just 60%. RH, which we're 60. All kind of normal to anyways.
Okay.
So,
but that's how it is with food. They bring it down to shelf stable to try to prevent mold, yeast, and all that stuff, and just keep it there. And that's what So it's being brought over to Canada.
It's over 0.6 that you get mold activity. I've been telling everybody 0.7. I thought at 70%. That's when your chances of mold increase.
And I think
It's
that's where it's
0.6?
0.6
It's
is where it
60%?
stops. That's probably the highest
Well,
it goes.
so that
Because that's our cure. That's our cure amount, right?
talking about relative humidity and then also talking about water activity. Just
Okay,
'cause they
that's where I'm
align that
confused.
way, yeah.
I'm sorry.
But that's
So-
where it's using that as the measurement. So that's where they check the moisture content for commercial grows in Michigan. And so that'll be
What do they look for? They look at a percentage.
Yeah, and for that usually it's got to be 40% or less. And a lot of times it'll be
40% or less, really.
or 0.4 is what the number you'll get, but usually
I'm
30%.
equating the same as
That's where
0.4
you
being
can
40%.
pass. You can pass for that, but then you can't necessarily distribute with that.
Hmm.
So with
That's why
that,
all our shit's dry.
that's where people they'll over. So I know companies will say that they'll dry their product out and then they'll rehydrate their product. So they'll go in and they'll pass it at 0.3, which is that's where you're going to be flying colors. You're good. They're not going to mess with you. But then you're risking losing your terpenes and flavonoids. So then what they'll do is they'll take it back and they'll leave it in their big container and put it inside of their veg room. That's just 70, 80% humidity. And they'll let it just absorb the moisture in the room. And while it will retain that moisture really well, actually, I'm like, wow, it rehumidified perfectly. But the problem with that is that perspiration from that plant is chlorophyll based nothing, and there's no terps that are just being sucked into those flowers. So what you have is re-moistened, bland cardboard. So when you work in the grow, you smell all this dank, and it's like, wow, it's so good. But then when it has to go through testing, they say, well, dry it until they try it. And that's what they'll do is they'll dry it completely, and then they'll just rehydrate it after the fact. So it may test at this and that and the other thing, but then when they put it back through the process to put it through to the consumer, it's been tampered with that actually will kill off a lot of the terpenes because of what they're doing.
Well, of course it will. Of course. So when you're okay, again, I'm just trying to get on the same
30%,
page.
That's a 40%. 40% you could still pass.
Why was
30
I thinking like 8 to 12% or something like that? I don't know where that percentage
As a
came.
moisture content
moisture content. Yeah.
of shelf
Or
stable.
maybe at 4%. I'm high. 6 and 4%. 6 and 4%.
6 and 4%.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. 40. Scratch that from the dude. 40% with water in there, bro.
So everybody's dying of
Hold on a
mold.
second.
Mold.
No.
Okay. Okay.
So
Hold
remove
on.
the
Hold on.
zero.
Because I'm still trying to understand. I'm still trying to get on the same page, boys. So okay. So right.
It took me looking at you with a confused face, and I'm like, oh.
We would work it out. I knew we would. Okay. So relative humidity being the relative humidity.
Yep.
Water
within that
space. Water content being
Water
within
activity being
within the bud.
within the bud.
Okay.
But
I
it's just
got
safe
it
to
right
assume if you're in a container with 60% RH, you're at your product is at this 0.6 water activity. That's what it's assumption.
That would okay. So then to go back to my question before the trim thing, how do you measure bud moisture? Is it the probe? Like a probe you just stick in like I do to my grass?
There's
Moisture
one for
meter.
like wood moisture
So Terminator.
meters, like they use for wood lumber.
Terminator has one right here.
There
So
we go.
it's a moisture meter. This is what me and Trey used.
So now there's
Years ago.
our industry.
Yeah, I just want to say, years ago, before people were even trimming, like automatic trim machine, like this was like revolutionary. This cat had, like, it was. I don't know if you remember the Terminator. You probably used it. Link's like, dude, I use it every day. But so this thing here, it's a probe essentially.
A probe.
That sticks into the flour and it measures the percentage.
Okay. Of course it is.
No,
Okay,
show.
of course it's a probe. I was just curious. Okay, so so shelf stable.
So yeah, it
is
goes
under
9 to 10%.
Shelf stable is under 10%.
No, 0.6 water
Or
activity.
sorry. Water activity is
I
under
think it's
0.6.
0.6 is safe.
Okay.
Speaking about my head
Okay,
a
of
little
course
bit
we
here,
are.
but somebody can fill us in on the comment
Okay,
section.
no, I get it. No, I get it. Okay.
So in
But-
their
but the
readings,
point-
and this is the Terminator, so they just go up to a 10%. And so when you're hitting 9% is good. Anything below that's going to be more fragile and tougher to trim. Like it can diminish. 10% or higher, you can have smeared or sticky stuff. So like that's where what it boils down to is this is very bro science. But when you have ways to get in the ballpark,
No, I disagree 100%. I have to stop you. At this point, if you're using a probe and it's giving you, we're talking numbers and we're getting an equation and a variable.
Terrence
Bro science
Howard
is out the
numbers.
window. Bro science is out the window. We
No,
have
but I'm
we have
saying
variables.
Not for this. I'm
Oh,
saying for the
sorry.
percentage that we
Sorry.
think is the best to use for the terpene. You know what I'm saying? Because my thought process is how to avoid the haze smell. Stick it this. If you can get it this percentage of moisture, then you're good. This is where, if you're following Triminator's side of things, it's just about how it trims. The terpenes, this is something that still needs to be tested. It's a theory, is all we have right now. But in theory, keeping it around, from what they're saying, in the 10% realm will make it so your plant remains a little bit moist, so you're going into the curing process, but you're not fully finished, so you can trim now. Anything below that, you're pretty much cured and dried. Your plant's smokable at that point. Now, when you're looking at shelf stabilization, that's going to be in the legal market, and that's the tough part. Is they're a lot of times regulated by the same bodies that'll regulate local tobacco stuff. Even though they're following what the FDA or the
dry, dead, horrible,
dry,
no existence. I'm already frustrated.
Yeah.
Wait, if you're telling me that if shelf stable is anything under 0.6, or like a 0.6 being the point. Okay. So I guess at a certain point, I guess
0.6.
It's not going to be 0.6 because that's going to be the relative humidity, which isn't going to be the. Hold on, I'm getting. No, we can't. No, we can't, because I have to get to this, because this is explaining a lot to me, because I'm just trying to think. You pulled some herb out of my bag that's been sitting in my bag for at least 3 months. It's a 1 pound bag. I had a pound in it fucking months ago, but I've been pulling out of it ever since. That
He
stuff is
saved
still
enough for us to smoke. What a great guy.
Oh gosh.
What a man. What a man.
It's still as, I shouldn't say still as, it's almost as lifelike today as it was then.
Yeah.
So it's not clearly, when it was growing in the tent, I'm just trying to understand the same terms, because nobody's ever explained it to me like this, because I don't ask. So when I hear it's going to be 0.6 because it's 60% in my tent, well, then when it's done curing, and so far it's clearly not going to be at 0.6 anymore. It's probably going to be a little bit lower, but it certainly should not be anywhere near 0.6 or 0.4. Like, you're telling me, if I'm understanding this right,
what's weird is it sounds that way, but then when you do, like, when me and Trey were doing it,
right?
When me and Trey were testing the stuff with the
0.6 and 0.4 is the wrong. 0.6 and 0.4 is.
But this is a different measurement.
Two different measurements. There's
That's
water
the thing.
activity as a measurement. He's doing moisture percent.
That's
water
the thing.
activity. Oh.
So
RH isn't even in the equation.
But see, here's the thing: is all of these things you can utilize to give you a ballpark idea of the water that's still in your flower.
I'm trying to say is it just seems like dispo just way too dry.
Well, and that's because of the regulations.
There we go.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So not only do I am
you think that contrigues to the hay smell too? Are we bringing this all back to
Of course it does.
But this is
you can almost guarantee. Sorry, so I'm figuring this out as I go. It's starting to make sense to me, and then now I'm getting frustrated that just the norm is to have it smelling like the same hay smelling dispo garbage coming out of a plastic bag that I get time and time again. And new tokers today are literally going to be opening these bags thinking this is what herb smells like today. This pathetic excuse for cardboard. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. The other stuff's good. I hope you guys really enjoyed the live stream we did where we experienced the mom stuff one-on-one. If you didn't see that, that was on our Patreon.com/FromTheStash. That was a lot of fun.
Maybe it was on YouTube.
But the mom stuff was, I can't remember if we did or not. Exceptional, but
they're not on the same restrictions.
They're not on the same restrictions.
Here's my point.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Not only do they have that same process where they get too dry of bud, but a lot of them bring to dispensaries that don't know how to store their product. So they're underneath lights for 10 hours a day, being opened up, in America, or in Michigan at least, opened up 5, 6, 30, 50 times in a day, being exposed to oxygen, light on top of it, and they're not in the bulk containers being stored in something like a Grove bag or even a Sea Vault. They're being in a turkey bag, in a big-ass turkey bag, in the back that's being also opened. So not only did they originally dry the hell out of the product, but then the storage and long-term curing of the product now is being exposed to things that are degrading the trichomes, degrading the terpenes, and degrading the overall look of the flower, because that's why a lot of this looks brown. That's why you can have stuff that's 3 months old, or however much old any of these things are, and it's still fire because it was stored properly. It wasn't over-dried.
Like the stuff that I have in my 1 pound bag. That's
or like
still
the stuff that Chris pulled out. He's like, yeah, this is the I pulled months ago. and that's just been sitting in the Canitrol. I'm like, what?
Stable in the Canitrol, yeah.
Every time we've gone there, his buds are definitely not the dry crumble that you see in Vegas, but you can tell it's fully cured, fully dry. Like everything out of the Canitrol seems like just pulled, but to the point where it's cured.
Of course.
But it's because it's
I should hope so.
Slow cure.
I should hope so with that kind of money.
It's the consistent. Yeah, it's the slow, consistent cure. And I think that's where you were saying in the beginning of the episode. It's not a long cure. It's a slow cure. And that slow cure is the steady consistency. We talked about that in another episode talking about growing better taste. Those fluctuations are detrimental to your grow. I don't think a lot of people understand how much that plays into the flower and to the curing and drying process, because I'm guilty of it myself. Of my main jar that I'm curing, I'm still opening up and messing with and smoking. It's not stored away for curing. It's my smoke jar. You know what I'm saying? I mean, your curing bag, you open up and that's what you're smoking out of.
I think that's a great thing to touch on too, is like, if you want to keep preserve the terpenes and cannabinoids within your product, how are you curing and long-term storing your product? That to me is key, because for the first so many years, I was so faithful to the mason jar.
Oh, dude, I still am.
So faithful.
That's my one thing, like how you switched to something
You're
different.
never switching? Yeah.
I'm a jar guy. I'm a jar head, brother.
Oh, my gosh. Switching to the Grove bags, man. No promo code, no affiliation whatsoever, I swear to you. The Grove bags have, I spent the first, we laughed about this weeks ago, that I used to laugh about Grove bags because we used to talk about how plastic and herb should not mix. How they just don't blend. You shouldn't have them together.
Almost in particular, though.
But here I am today, where I honestly feel like I don't know what it is about the Mylar, about these bags, that makes these things work so well. It stores well, the temperature's retained, the humidity's retained, the terpenes are retained, the cannabinoids are retained. You can get custom bags. I'm gonna sound like a shill, but it's just like,
all right. So let's say
it is. I think I like
bags versus mason jars.
Grow bags.
I still mason jar.
All right, mason jars, and prove me wrong.
Flock.
You may have this guy's back. Stashers, let's hear. I want to hear it in the chat. And also, anybody who has some experience with some science to back it that isn't paid for by the company.
Yeah.
And I know that at this point, it sounds like it's so hard, because how do you win? You hope that somebody randomly does a paid for non-profit scientific test on your
for someone else's product. Yeah.
You know,
it's honestly
hard, man. It's hard to trust
anecdotal. It's anecdotal.
Yeah.
I feel like in the same way, because there's a place for jars. I like how you can stack your jars up.
I like to have a jar sitting on the table to flex.
Way it is, you don't have to worry about the jar crumpling up in the way,
But I've dropped a jar at Shell gas station,
and you lost all that herb to glass.
And I walked out. I picked up some buds. I put them in my pocket.
Yep.
Bud wasn't fully legal per se, allegedly then. And I left. And from there on out, I said, I wish there was a better alternative. And I thought there was a plastic. Your Grove bags work great. Trust me. I had stuff that I forgot about allegedly from Vegas.
Soda jar. Like I said, I'm not, this isn't a hill I want to die on. This is just personal experience. Same thing with jars. I've used jars forever. I got nothing to say about it, negative to say.
Well, I'm going to let the Masons know. Okay. We'll get this settled.
This ain't free.
We'll get this settled.
Mason jars do break, though. That happened. I had a buddy in town from Boston. We were at Caesar's Palace, Joe's Crab Shack, and I gifted him some weed. This is pretty cool. They can do that in my state, and because he was just visiting, and he has it in his pocket, and we're at the bar, and it slips right out, smashes on the ground.
Darn, man.
He's picking the buds out. He's like, it's all legal there. So it's like, it's just funny that that waitresses came around, cleaned it up, no problem. It's like not a big deal at all. Like, hey, you want a bag? We actually gave him a sandwich bag. Get rid of it, but. Yeah, a little side story about broken mason jar.
Yeah, been there,
it happens.
I was the friend though, and I was by myself. I was by myself. I should have been at school at the time. Skipped the bus to skip the day, and the guy was trying to help me clean stuff up, and I was like, I got it. He's like, you cannot do this, or you'll get cut. And I was like, oh. So I just casually walked out of there with pocket. Just like
I will admit, it's a lot easier to fit a Grove bag in my pocket than it is to fit a small
Dude,
Mason
that
jar.
was the Wu-Tang concert.
Yeah.
That I had
That's
Grove bag. I had all my blunts in Grove. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I'll
And you
pre-roll
lost them, too,
blunts.
didn't you? How many did you lose?
Yeah, dude, there was 10 of them pre-roll. Or
At
15.
least-
There was
at
15
least, yeah, it
pre-rolled.
was more than 10.
Yeah, I had 15 of them.
Pre-rolled.
But, well, one more thing before we get to the end of this episode, I want to touch on Bovida or Integra packs. Do you think these are the save-all, be-all, keep-all? Or are these just accessories to your slow dry cure?
No, I think I use it as a last resort. You know what I mean? Like I do my best to try to bring it down to, the container around 60%, 62% RH and keep it there. Or, the Canatrol nowadays.
Yeah, well, we all don't have Canatrols, Chris. So
you're right. It's
they call him Canatrol Chris. That's his fucking nickname now.
I lost my train of thought. What was I even talking about?
Bovida,
Integra.
I use that as a last resort. I use that so like if I need to use it, I'll use it. If it's like over dry a little bit, I'll put it in there to try to increase the humidity. I don't put it in there. I used to put it in there just get down to shelf stable and then put a humidity pack and leave the humidity pack in there. I don't feel like I need to really do that.
That is his last resort.
Suffocation,
no breathing.
Two things that
I've
I've
really
learned.
use it if I have to.
Two things that I've learned about
cut his arm bleeding.
Humidity packs. That's what I'll refer to them as until someone pays me otherwise.
Show me the money.
The thing about humidity packs is A, last resort. B, they have a lifespan. You can't leave them in there forever. They do dry out.
You can rehydrate them. Though.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
But then
that
also,
was my next point. No, I have a C and D. A lot of misconception with them is that I'm at 85% humidity. Let me drop a humidity pack in there and assume that that's going to drop it 20% humidity and just keep it at that 65, 62.5.
I thought
doesn't
that once upon a
happen.
time too. Yeah,
Sorry,
I was that
go
guy. No, you continue. I'm saying I thought that.
No. I was just.
You had a D.
I did an E.
That was C.
Or I did a C. That was it. Just the expectation that they're going to bring up and down your humidity any more than if you're stretching 5%. I think 5% you're stretching. I think once you get it to that 62, 60%, drop your humidity pack in there. That's when you're going to maintain that.
Yeah, well, I think if anything, maintained for long-term storage, but definitely, just like Chris was saying, the ideal storage for long-term is ideal storage for long-term. It's not using an extra artificial piece. And our boy, is it Ron White-looking guy? One of the places, you remember him? Hated the other guys? Fuck the other side guy? He was explaining that they use a saline solution or salt
Integra
that has been known to strip the terpenes potentially. That helps.
Are you talking about the guy at the Integra booth?
Yes.
Talking trash about the
Yeah.
Bovida guy?
He had a Ron
that was
White.
hilarious.
He had a Ron
That
White
was a
vibe to
hilarious
him,
conversation.
doesn't he? You know what I'm saying? Like if he had a cocktail, he'd have been like, you know what? These pieces of shit were here.
Is Ron White the golfer?
He's the blue collar comedy tour guy with the white hair.
Look,
The older dude.
I reckon.
Who's
I think
always
he's
who always had liquor
yeah.
and
I swear there's a golfer out there that fits that stature
that's
perfectly.
that. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Looks
maybe it
just
isn't.
like him.
Maybe it isn't.
But that kind of thing that he was saying, it has some validity to it. You know what I'm saying? People look at every single thing you get from the commercial grows from the dispensary. Every one of them have a Bovida pack in there or Integra.
Yeah.
And it's like they're using these as crutches instead of doing the proper cure.
Yep. Thank you.
And using a crutch, thinking it's going to be your automation piece, is ridiculous. And that's where I think the confusion comes in. Instead of these assisting long-term storage, they're being used for storage. And it makes it so people aren't doing these basic essentials of proper drying and curing. Grow your plant all the way, not too long, so it degrades and it does get that kind of burnt, hay, funky plant smell. But dry and cure your plants properly. Take the time to do it. Too long is not too good. Too short is not too good. Like
and just to finish, when you as you're kind of getting to that burp, getting through the burping to the curing, get that stable humidity, then apply a humidity pack. Some could argue then don't apply it until you start to lose humidity from your stability. So if you spend a week getting it down to 62, if you then see that over day say a week is 7. So after day 8 and 9, you're seeing 60 again and again. You're good. You're seeing stability. That's when you could drop in a humidity pack. Then you're fine. You see it start to drop down. Just don't rely on it as a crutch. And I'm glad you said it like that. Glad you said it that way.
Gang shit.
Great episode, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're a little all over the place, but I think we did touch on some
Bangers.
We're in
some
Canada,
points
man,
with,
and we're looking at 24-hour clocks. It's got us. I don't know what time it is.
The hay smell. We covered it a little bit. I think the one thing that I don't think we covered enough was, and I'll give a shout out to Mark from Perfect Gardens. He has a video kind of detailing the hay smell, and I think one of his main points in that was just overfeeding in the grow cycle, towards the end of the grow cycle.
That's
so
very fair.
Build up a chlorophyll. Whatever. I think he related all that. I don't have everything memorized on
But
it,
he
but
does a
it's
great
worth
way.
checking out and kind of.
And that's when
seeing
people
his
talk
point
about
on
that
that
leaching. They say leaching your plant or watering, like flushing, but the leaching it out from food is a process of helping to break down that chlorophyll more. And it makes sense when you almost think in that aspect, because if your food
starches and sugars get broke
if
down
it has too much food already in the plant, it's not going to be able to break down this properly. So great point.
It's an
Shout out
area
to
that has
Perfect
been
Gardens.
studied, which I think should be studied. I think we're talking to Dr. Allison Justice about this topic. She has so much knowledge as well. Somebody to definitely reference when it comes to drying and curing.
I think she'd probably smoke with us down here.
She would.
She'd party. Yeah.
She would.
I think I'd love to get her on a podcast episode.
There's a lot of they're learning so much on the drying and curing side
That's
of
what I'm
things.
saying.
It's
Somebody
exciting
who's
to see them make
in the
good progress.
field who's literally could say, well,
Even
you think this, so it's so exciting to hear hypothesis of this plant, of what people here's what we think we could do.
even challenging the
You know?
60-60, and the
That's
60 for the
fascinating,
dry,
dude, to see a new thing, or Chris's favorite method of curing, water curing.
No, it's not my favorite.
He's like,
I gotta do a follow-up video on that. Actually, I'm
Not.
planning
Hate
with the
it.
final results.
That's exciting.
So, video
That's
coming
exciting.
soon.
Guys, I can't believe this entire episode you didn't tell me my fly was down. I'm Pigeons 420. Huge shout out to Wink in the back. That's Mr. Growit and Rob from CLtv, guys.
And we
Thank
are
you so much.
from-
And shout out
aren't
to our
even gonna do it.
patrons. We are from the stash. We should have done it and went,
We are. From
Shout
the
out to our
stash.
patrons, guys. You feel
like
you're looking
a
for any behind the scenes
K-pop
content,
band.
you want to help support the show, it helps keep free, informative content coming towards you live here on From the Stash. Go check on
I like where he was going with
patreon.com/From
it. He's starting to do it.
the Stash. We're out of here.
Peace.
Peace.
From the stash.